A busy mother of three, Angela Wilder, was convinced that someone was watching her before she was found dead on the floor of her North Dakota home in 2015. When a promising young nursing student was found brutally murdered in her North Dakota home, the evidence quickly pointed to her ex-husband as the culprit. A casual conversation with a former bartender revealed more about the dark story after Richie Wilder, Jr. was convicted of killing Angela Wilder. When Angela was found dead in her Minot, North Dakota home on November 13, 2015, she was pursuing her nursing degree at Minot State University and had just discovered she was expecting her fourth child. Chris Jackson, her fiancé, had called 911 to report that he had come home to a broken back door. Officers who went inside found the couple's 2-year-old son unharmed in his crib and Angela stabbed to death in her bedroom. Angela suffered around 40 stab wounds over the course of the attack. Just before 11 p.m., Jackson told police Angela drove him to work at Walmart. He also noted Angela had been nervous that night about staying alone. During the night before, she thought she heard someone tampering with the front door. She felt as if she was being watched. During his shift, Jackson texted and called her, but after 2 a.m. she stopped answering. He figured she had fallen asleep until he arrived home and discovered the back door kicked in. As he sat in an interrogation room, Jackson placed a phone call to a friend and gave a detailed description of the individual he believed was responsible, his fiancée's ex-husband, Richie Wilder Jr. The caller can be heard saying, "Richie's probably the expletive piece of expletive who did it." He is heard saying, "God, I expletive hope they piece it to him." Investigators contacted Richie, who told them he had been at home all night with his new wife, Cindy Wilder, a kindergarten teacher at the local school district, after leaving work. Cynthia confirmed the alibi, telling investigators that she had gotten up several times with the baby and Richie was always asleep in the bed each time. When Angela died, Richie and Angela were at the height of a bitter custody battle over the couple's children. Angela and Richie met at church in Alabama and had a loving relationship. Her sister Crystal Morton recalled, "One morning she called me frantically and she said, 'Calm down, what is going on?' And she says, 'It's Richie.' I just woke up, came out of my bedroom, went into my living room and he's sitting on my couch and looked at me and said, 'See, I told you I could get to you if I wanted to.'" In addition, family members described a violent end to their marriage, with Richie being convicted of domestic abuse and being forced out of the military after he had gotten physical with Angela. Despite Richie's alibi, physical evidence discovered during the investigation also pointed to him. Angela's blood was found in one of the couple's vehicles, Richie's DNA was found under one of Angela's fingernails, and Richie had a scratch on his cheekbone after the murder. "We were excited, we couldn't believe it," Mattis said of the evidence. Ricciardi was arrested and charged with murder. While he initially refused to speak with investigators, he eventually requested to speak with detectives and laid out a shocking story. Apparently, Ricky planned the break-in with Angela's fiancé because he suspected that she had been cheating on Jackson and wanted to use the evidence to prove infidelity to prove their custody claim. Once inside the house, Richie claimed Jackson had gone insane and started stabbing Angela to death. However, detectives did not believe the story. The night prior to their interview, Goodman watched surveillance footage that clearly showed that Jackson spent his entire shift at the Walmart. It took the jury less than an hour to convict him. His wife, Cindy, dissolved into tears outside the courtroom. She continued to insist that Richie had been home the night Angela was killed. Cindy appeared to have solved the case until she rekindled a friendship with a former local bartender and made some shocking admissions of her own. While working as a bartender at the Original in Minot, Matt Walters met Cindy before she became engaged. The friends drifted apart for a while, but after Richie was arrested, Cindy tracked Walters down on Facebook. Nevertheless, Cindy insisted that Richie was innocent and had been home alone with her. As Walters and Cindy conversed online, Cindy revealed a startling new detail. During a conversation about Richie's arrest, Walters commented that killing someone with a knife was not a wise method of committing the crime, and Cindy revealed it was not the original plan. She said, "Well, the knife was a backup. It was supposed to be a gun." Concerned by what he heard, Walters contacted the police and eventually agreed to help by allowing them to wire his car and arranging for a meeting with Cindy. As they walked to the bars, their conversation did not turn toward the murder, until Walters was about to leave for the night. Cindy told him that she was proud of her husband. "I'm just pissed that he got caught, and that he got sloppy and impatient," She went on to add that they had the murder planned for, like 2 years, but when Richie came home the morning of the killing he told her it had gotten messy and she had fought back. She put up a good fight. She scratched his face. Like, and that's what got him, too, was expletive. Like, if it was me, I expletive would have gone back and cut her expletive fingers off. I would have burned them. I would have lit the house on fire. According to Cindy, Richie had gone psycho on his ex because of the hate, anger, and frustration. She admitted during the conversation to helping Richie clean up after the murder, surveilling Angela from her car for Richie, and helping him plan the murder. I fully believe that it needed to be done. The recording was enough for investigators to arrest Cindy and charge her with conspiracy to commit murder. She'd later tell Morrison that although a handful of things in that conversation were somewhat true, most of what she had said was extremely exaggerated to try to impress Walters, who had his own criminal past. Even with the damning recording, prosecutors offered Cindy a deal that would have included a 25-year sentence, but Cindy turned it down. Instead, she hoped to get less time behind bars by taking an Alford plea, which didn't admit guilt but acknowledged there was enough evidence to lead to a conviction in the case. It would be a costly gamble. Rather than the 25-year sentence that was part of the plea deal, a judge sentenced Cindy to life in prison without the possibility of parole. You were the one person who could have stopped this nightmare.